Hey guys, it's been a while. It's been a while. But I'm back because I want to talk to you guys about something. So I've been doing First Kings. I've been really delving into First Kings because we're in such an interesting time in the world right now, especially with everything going on in Israel. And I really focused in on chapter 17, which most of the time in First Kings, they focus on, Elijah in the cave, chapter 19. And so what I kind of wanted to think about is so it's actually First Kings 17, 8 through 24. And it's when he meets the widow in Zarephath, I want to say is how you say that, but again, I'm probably wrong. But I'm just going to read it and we're just going to talk about it because I think it's really significant what happens here. So at this time, Elijah is a prophet, and he is basically dealing with everything that's going on in Samaria and King Ahab and his wife Jezebel. And if you look up any information about what it is to have the spirit of Jezebel, it's not a good thing. You don't want to be called a Jezebel. Not just in like society, but actually even biblically. That's a pretty bad rap to have. So, all right, verse 8. And the Lord said to Elijah, "Go and live." I think that key word live, when you live somewhere, you just don't go there one time. Like that's where you hang out. Like that's your home. That's your like safe place. That's where you dwell. Go live in the village of Zarephath, near the city of Sidon. There is a widow there that will feed you. I have given her my instructions. Okay, always remember, God has special favor on the orphans and widows. Being an orphan myself, and I'm okay to say that, you know, God has different favor. Not favorite. God doesn't have favorites, but favor upon those people because of the life they've led. And it's the same thing with the widows. So he went there, and as he arrived at the gates of the village, he saw the widow gathering sticks. So normally when you gather sticks, you're going to make a fire. Okay? And he asked her, "Would you please bring me a cup of water?" Okay. Well, have you ever thought about the significance of water? Water is life. That's why the Egyptians were so into the Nile River because that's where they drew life from. Same with the Jordan River, the Sea of Galilee. I mean, I can go on. Water produces life. Life lives by water. We are like 85% water. Okay? So I think it's interesting because of what she's going through and she's gathering sticks that he asked her for water. Hmm. As she was going to get it, he called to her, "Bring me a bite of bread, too." Okay? Our daily bread, what we have to go on. But she said, "I swear by the Lord your God." She didn't say her God. She said your God. Now, that doesn't mean that she doesn't follow the Lord and, it isn't her God too. But I think it's significant that she says by the Lord your God. She recognizes him. "That I don't have a single piece of bread in the house, and I only have a handful of flour left in the jar and a little cooking oil at the bottom of the jug. I was just gathering a few sticks to cook this last meal, and then my son and I will die." Okay, that's grim. Okay, that's a grim picture. Imagine being that widow, gathering those sticks, knowing it's the last time you and your child are going to eat. That's a desperate place. And she stops what she's doing to get this guy water at the front gates. That is following God. I'm going to tell you, if she followed the instruction, that's following God. But Elijah said to her, "Don't be afraid. Okay? Go ahead and cook that last meal." I like that it's in quotations. It's because Elijah knows. And I love how he leads that. Don't be afraid. How often are we afraid? That woman must have been in fear. I mean, I would have been in fear. That's your child. That's you. That's life. But bake a little loaf of bread first. Okay, well, she just told him she doesn't have a lot. Afterward, there will be enough food for you and your son. Now let's fast forward all the way to John, Matthew, the Gospels, and feeding the 5,000 and feeding the 4,000 and how a little multiplies to a lot. It's all about what you do with it. If you offer even the smallest thing to the Lord, he will multiply it bigger than you've ever imagined in your life. Like faith as small as a mustard seed. There's this farm I drive by when I go to my friend's house, and it's actually a mustard seed farm. And it's this big field, and it's on the left side of the road, and I can see it when I drive. And you think about miles and acres of those mustard seeds, and how even just the tiniest little seed, I mean, if you've ever seen a mustard seed, you know how tiny they are. They're almost like, sand. And if you just have that enough faith, you can pick up a mulberry tree and uproot it. Tell a mountain to move and it'll move. That's what God says in his word. That's wild. So if this woman just bakes that tiny little loaf with what she has, think about how it would be multiplied. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, this is verse 14, says. There will always, we serve an always God. We serve an ever-present God. Always be plenty of flour and oil left in your containers until the time when the Lord sends rain and the crops grow again. Because right now, they're in a drought and a famine. So she did as Elijah said. That's faith. And she and Elijah and her son continued to eat from the supply of flour and oil for many days. For no matter how much they used, there was always enough left in the containers, just as the Lord promised Elijah, through Elijah. Now remember, we are the vessel. We are the vessel. He promised that favor and that promise through Elijah to that woman and her son. Sometime later, the woman's son became sick. He grew worse and worse, and finally he died. Okay, again, we're back to Grimm. Let's go back to Grimland. Then she said to Elijah, "O man of God, what have you done to me?" Okay. Isn't that what we do, though? We get so irritated with God and what he's doing when something doesn't go our way or when things happen. It's true. When my grandma was sick, I was, even though I knew I still served a good God, I really had a hard time. I really was like, why is she sick? Like, I didn't expect her obviously to live forever. None of us get out alive, but I just wasn't ready. It wasn't my time. I wasn't ready for that. It wasn't in my box of what I wanted and mapped out for myself. This is what we do. We start getting irritated. Have you come here to punish my sins by killing my son? But Elijah replied, "Give me your son." Like his body? Like that's weird. That's a weird vibe. That would be weird. "Give me your son." And he took the boy from her, carried him up to the upper room. Okay. Remember, who was in the upper room? Who was praying? Okay. It was Paul. Anyway, where he lived, and he laid the body on his bed. Then Elijah cried out to the Lord, "O Lord my God, why have you brought this tragedy on this widow who opened her home to me, causing her son to die?" Okay? And he stretched himself out over the child 3 times and cried out to the Lord. So he prayed over this child for 3 separate times. 3 separate instances he took the time and did that. Now remember, 3 is the number of completion, which I find interesting how numbers work in the Bible. O Lord my God, please let this child's life return to him. The Lord heard Elijah's prayer, and the life in the child have returned, and he came back to life. He continued in persistence to knock at the door for a miracle. He continued forward. Now, that does not necessarily mean that the miracle is going to look like what we think it should look like. Like when my grandma passed away, I did not see that. I mean, most people aren't going to see that as a miracle. But the miracle that came out of her passing away is what we got to see in her passing. It's a beautiful story. One day I'll get on here and I'll tell the whole story and I'll probably cry. So be ready for that. But I will do that one day. But it was a beautiful rendition of what it is to enter God's glory. And that was the miracle for us, as we got to see that firsthand. And I will tell you that some of the things that we hear about heaven and the things we read in here, these are real things that you see and will encounter. It's wild. So stay tuned for that. But as I get through this, think about this. So then Elijah brought him down from the upper room. So see, the upper room is where we meet God. That is where you interact with God. That is your sanctuary. That is your space. That is where you meet with God. And that's where he lived. Think about that. Elijah lived in the upper room. That's where we need to live, is in the upper room, dwelling with God. In the upper room, the highest ascended place that we can get to God. And that doesn't mean you have to live like in a hidden area. That's not what that means. That just means a state of being. Where are you dwelling? Where is your spirit dwelling? Is it in the upper room? Or is it down too much among the earth? We aren't of the earth. We just happen to reside here now, but this isn't where our home is. This isn't where we're from. We reside here for a short time. It's our temporary home. Our home is in heaven. I'll do a sermon about that too, but just track with me for a second. Then Elijah brought him down from the upper room and gave him to his mother. Look, your son's alive. Okay, I mean that's a cool way to do that, I guess. Hey, look over there. You know, I found that funny. I don't know. Then the woman told Elijah, now I know for sure that you are a man of God and the Lord truly speaks through you. And then you get down and they're going to go to the contest at Mount Carmel, and, you know, Obadiah hits the road or comes on the scene, and, you know, there's some more. Then you get down and he's, you know, Mount Sinai and all that stuff. But what I wanted to talk about is, where are you dwelling? Where is your spirit dwelling? Where is your upper room? Just think about that. Where are you drawing your strength from? Where are you drawing your faith from? Because if it isn't from God, it can be washed away as quick as mud. Stay the course. I know everything going on around us. I know everything going on in the world is uncertain, but they were going through a drought, a famine, terrible things. This woman thought she was going to die. Even if you just muster up a little bit of faith, God will come through for you. I missed you guys. I'm going to be better about getting on here. I hope you have a great week. See you later.